All right, as we begin our look at the Madrid pattern made by Federal Glass Company, we first need to talk about something that has been a story that's been told by other glass authors over the years. I don't know how to verify that it's true or not. In 1931, Federal Glass introduced a pattern that they referred to as Sylvan, and a lot of collectors today call it parrots. And it does have two parrots on it, but as you see, there's lots of empty glass here. Now that's not a big deal on a sherbet like this, but on a dinner plate or something like that, you're going to see the scratches more often. So the pattern was only produced for a year, beginning in 1931, and they decided to change it. They liked the overall shapes that they were producing it in, but they wanted a busier pattern to hide those scratches that are going to come with everyday use. So they ended up changing the Sylvan pattern, and that's how we came to be with the Madrid pattern that we have here. Now, I have just a few pieces out here. We'll talk a little bit more about those in a while. But this was kind of the beginning of my glass collection. In about 1986 or 1987, my family had a sale of items that belonged to my great-grandmother. And one of these was various pieces in the Madrid pattern. And I knew that's what it was because I had had an interest in glass based on my maternal grandparents. They were glass collectors. So when I saw this, I thought, okay, this is kind of interesting. It had a family history. It belonged actually belonged to my great-great-grandmother, and she passed it on to her daughter. It was kept in a trunk for many, many years, and surprisingly enough, it was a trunk that was kept at my house while I was a kid growing up. I never knew it was in there. But anyway, this was kind of the beginning. There were several luncheon plates, some cups and saucers, the sugar and the creamer, several cream soups, a few tumblers. But this was kind of the beginning of my collection long ago in 1986, 1987, sometime around there. All right, so we're going to begin talking about the Madrid pattern with the Golden Glow color. Golden Glow was the name that Federal used for their amber color. They began using it in 1931. Madrid was actually introduced in 1932, and it was in production until 1939. I believe that the Golden Glow color was used throughout that length of time. One thing that I didn't mention earlier is that when I talked about the Sylvan pattern, many of these shapes were similar to the pieces in that pattern as it just kind of rolled over to Madrid. But there were over 40 different pieces made in Madrid, and I believe that all of them were made in Golden Glow. I have my representation of what I have in my collection here. So we're going to talk about some of the pieces that we have. We're going to start on the opposite side of the table from me in the back corner. We're going to kind of start talking. We're going to come from that side towards me and move towards the front, just so you can stay along with us. All right, so in the back here, we've got several different kinds of plates, and we're going to start over there with the dinner plate. And then right here, we have a relish plate that has 4 sections. There are dividers there. We'll talk about that a little bit later in another section. We've got a grill plate right here. We have a round cake plate. And then we'll finish talking about the plates here. We've got a luncheon plate, we've got a salad plate, and we've got a bread plate. As we go back on the other side of the table here, we've got 4 different pitchers in golden glow. We have the 2 farthest from me. The only difference is the front one has an ice lip, the back one doesn't. The 2 square ones here, we've got the standard pitcher, we've got what they refer to as the juice pitcher. And I kind of mentioned the shape. If you notice, these pitchers are square, and I think that's kind of indicative of a lot, not all of Madrid. Is the square shape that they use. That's not something you see with every pattern. Most patterns were circular in design, but Madrid followed along the Sylvan line and was a square pattern. We have the 5 different sizes of tumblers that they made, and we have 2 footed ones. There are 2 different sizes of footed ones right here, okay? And then we have 3 different sizes of flat tumblers, as they refer to them. I should point out that these are mold blown, so they're very thin. We'll talk about that some more when we talk about reproductions and reissues and things like that. These are the same size, but as you can see, there's a little bit different design in them. And let's talk a little bit about design. Madrid was in production for over 7 years, so over that time, the molds did change. I don't know with the tumblers which was done first. Some of the other changes, I have my suspicions, and I'll talk about those as they happen. But they did change the molds over time. So then if we come back over here, we've got a nice big salad bowl. We've got 2 different vegetable bowls, serving bowls. We've got a nice little sauce dish. And if we come back over here, we've got a cookie jar and a lid with it. We've got an oval serving platter. We've got a butter dish and lid. And we've got a cup and a saucer, okay? The saucer is the same size as the bread and butter plate, but if you can see, the bread and butter plate has the Madrid design in the middle, where the saucer does not. Now, when we come back over here, we have coasters. Coasters were made with this. We've got a plain coaster over here. This one has a ring, which is just perfect for a tumbler to sit in. Some of these were also, you can find them on what they called a Lazy Susan, a cold cut server, and it was a wooden piece that there were cut out, and these were placed inside of those cutouts in the Lazy Susan. Unfortunately, that's not something that I have in my collection. We have 2 different styles of shakers. We've got a footed kind, we've got a flat kind. I do believe that the footed kind was made first because the shaker in Sylvan was a footed shaker as well. Over time, they decided to change the design and went with the flat style. We've got an oval serving bowl. We have a console bowl, and candlesticks. We come over here, and for some reason this is one of my favorite pieces. This is a little cream soup. I think this is just a nice little elegant way to eat soup during a dinner meal. We have a sugar and creamer. Sugar has a lid. We have two different sizes, or two different styles of sherbets. Again, this one referred to as cone-footed. This one is referred to as squatty. As you can see, there's a difference in the size. Again, I believe this one was made first because the Sylvan sherbets were this same shape. So again, I don't know when the change was made. We have a little Jello mold right here, and then we have a soup dish and a jam dish. Now, the soup dish is the same size as the butter dish, same depth, everything 7 inches across, and the only difference is there's a lip here for the lid to sit in the butter dish. So these are examples of the pieces that I own. Obviously, I do not have all of them. There are some that I do not own in amber. I may own them in other colors, but I don't own them here. Probably the most desirable is the gravy boat and platter, and they're also the ashtray in amber. You'll see one a little bit later. I do have one in another color, but again, I really feel like Golden Glow was made in all of the 40 plus pieces that the company made the pattern in, you know, these are the dishes that we use here at our house for our special occasion dinners, such as holiday dinners, things like that. So I think you certainly should be able to put together a setting that would certainly suit you well for your special occasions. Okay, so now we have the blue color that Madrid was made in. Federal called this blue Madonna blue. It's a very nice, soft pastel color of blue. And interestingly enough, in terms of Madrid, it was only used for a year. The Madonna blue was introduced by Federal in 1932, and by 1933 it was no longer being used for the pattern. There aren't as many pieces found in blue. Roughly 20 are noted in various reference books, and I have just a few of them here. I don't have all of them. And so we're going to talk a little bit about these, and I know some of you may be saying, wait a minute, Dean, that's not blue over here. It's here for a reason. And so I just left it out here to talk about it. So we're going to start with this picture right here. This was the only picture made in the Madonna blue pattern by Madrid. And I've left out this one to show the differences between them. The blue one, and you will see with the green, it has what we call an applied handle. Whereas the amber, and you'll see later, the pink one, has what we refer to as a molded handle. It was part of the mold when the glass was poured into it. This was attached later, okay? Anytime you have an applied handle like this, you need to be extra careful. You should never hold it just by that. Always make sure you have hold of this part. You don't know when it might crack. So, here are the tumblers that Madonna blue was made in. Again, just the 3 flat ones. It was not produced in the footed ones that you saw with the golden glow color. We have shakers. Again, these are the footed shakers. We have sugar and creamer. Sugar has a lid. We have a cup. Unfortunately, I didn't notice and didn't get my saucer out. There's a saucer somewhere here. We have a cone-footed sherbet, and we have the bread plate, which is the same size as the saucer, and we have a dinner plate. So again, blue is a little bit more difficult to find, and we will talk. Unfortunately, there were some reproductions done in blue, and we'll talk about reproductions later in the video. So again, nice, simple, light color of blue, very enjoyable to try to find, and certainly wonderful when you can find an original piece in this lovely shade of blue. Alright, so now as we move on through our talk about Madrid, we're up to the springtime green color that Federal used. They began using it to manufacture glass in 1926 and stopped using it in 1936. So it was, these pieces in front of you were all made between 1932 and 1936. There were close to 30 different pieces made in green, not as many as in Golden Globe, but certainly more than in the Madonna blue color. And again, we've got our applied handled pitcher. Now, not that I own one, but reference books do refer to the fact that there are mold handled pitchers in green. We have, unlike the Madonna blue, we do have footed tumblers in springtime green. We've got the same 3 different shapes of flat tumblers that we have. We have a cup and saucer. We have both styles of coaster. We've got the plain one. We've got the one with the indent for a tumbler. And we have, coming over here, we've got our cone-footed sherbet. We've got our sugar and creamer. Sugar has our lid. We've got both styles of shakers, our footed and our flat. I've got a sauce bowl. I've got a luncheon plate. And I've got a grill plate. For me, springtime green is a little bit harder to find than the Golden Glow, probably on a par with the Madonna blue. You just don't see it as often, so it wasn't made in the same quantity that the Golden Glow pieces were. So again, a little more challenging to find, but certainly well worth the effort that you have to put into it. Alright, so here we've moved on and we have what Federal referred to as rose glow. It's their pink color. And this is the pattern, or this is the part of the pattern that seems to have the fewest number of pieces. Most reference books only list 16. I found a piece that they haven't listed. I'll talk about that in a second. I've been told that from a distance this almost looks more like the Golden Glow, but when you really hold it up and look at it, and I'm going to wait to zoom in here, you see that it is a nice light pale pink color. So here I've got the mold handled pitcher. Okay, so We've also got a cookie jar. We have one style of tumbler right here. It was made in only the flat tumblers. We've got a nice little sauce bowl. We've got a console bowl and candlesticks. Okay. The interesting piece that I have that's not listed in most reference books is a sherbet in pink. And again, this is clearly the cone-footed sherbet that started out with Sylvan, and then as it evolved into Madrid. This was never reproduced, so here's a piece you don't see very often. I will say that with pink, you have to be careful with what you're buying. The pink color was reused by Indiana, and we'll talk a little bit later about Reproductions. You have to know exactly what you're looking for and what it is. Some of these pieces were never reproduced. The console bowl, these mold-blown tumblers were never reproduced. The pitchers, the cookie jars, like I said, the sherbets were never reproduced. The candlesticks were. We'll talk about that later. So you have to really pay attention as to what you're looking for, especially with the pink color, because there are some pieces out there that were never made, such as originally, like the creamer and sugar. Those were Federal never made those in rose glow in the 30s. Pink creamer and sugars were made by Indiana in the 1980s. So you have to really know your reproductions, reissues, whatever term you'd like to use for them. But again, not an easy pattern to find, again, because there wasn't much made in this color originally. So this one's always good to hunt for and look for, but like I said, be careful and make sure you know what you're looking at. Alright, now we're going to talk about the iridescent or carnival color that Federal produced. It was introduced in 1926. Glass author Gene Florence says that the company called this sunburst as a color. It was only made in these three pieces that you see here. Well, I should say, commonly made in these three pieces. I have seen a dinner plate for sale on eBay. Unfortunately, I lost that auction. But this is just an interesting side note. There wasn't a lot, just the console bowl and the candlesticks were made. So it wasn't made in a variety of pieces. So this is all you're going to find in this color. Even though Federal did make other patterns in the sunburst, carnival, iridescent type color. So it's still a very pretty set that you can find and use in your house today. Okay, so we're now up to the next color in Madrid, and this one is probably my favorite to look for because nobody really knows what all was made in Crystal Madrid. Obviously, Federal had been using it for quite some time, since that was the predominant color they made when they first opened, and I'm not really sure how long they continued to make Madrid in crystal. I do know that some of the pieces that you see here were reproduced in some form or fashion, others were not. And so you just have, I don't know what you're going to find out there. Most reference books talk about a crystal pitcher. I've not ever seen one. I certainly have been looking for at least 20 years. I've never heard of one, so I don't know if it truly exists. So we start off here with, I've got a luncheon plate. Luncheon plates were never reproduced. Anything that was done was in the dinner plate size. This is a grill plate, and it's got 3 sections. The reproduced ones only had 2. It had a single divider going across like that. So I know this is an original one. Again, we've got our 3 flat tumblers. We've got our 2 footed tumblers. And again, these are the mold blown ones. We'll talk more about the reproduction tumblers as we go along. We've got our coasters. We've got our one with the indent for it, and we've got the plain one over here. We've got our console bowl right here, which makes me hope that there are candlesticks out there, original candlesticks out there to match the console bowl. So I just don't have them. We have the footed shakers right here. These I've never seen or heard of flat shakers, so my guess is that Federal had stopped making Madrid in crystal by the time the mold changed to the flat shakers. We've got our cone-footed sherbet, and we've got our creamer and sugar, and the sugar has a lid on it. So probably my favorite piece that I own. This is an ashtray, which it's the same size as the saucer and the bread plate, but it's got little indents that have been put at each corner to rest the cigarette. So the ashtray was made in golden glow and springtime green, but here we've got one in crystal as well. Like I said, oh, and I forgot, we've got a cookie jar here. Again, the cookie jar was never reproduced. So, like I said, for me, the fascination with the crystal color is I don't know what's out there. I don't know how long they used it with Madrid. I don't know what pieces they made. And unfortunately, most of these pictures were photographed for an upcoming book that I'm not sure is going to be made. I would love to see it made, but we'll just have to wait and see. So again, you need to pay attention because Indiana did make their reproduction in crystal. You have to know what you're looking at, what you're looking for, what was reproduced, what wasn't. So I think that's why the crystal is so exciting for me to look for. So, right. Okay, so we're now going to talk about a few interesting pieces that I have in my collection. And this one is an ashtray that has been made out of it appears to be the jam dish, or maybe, no, I think it's maybe a butter dish. I'm not really sure. But obviously, it's been reworked as soon as it came out of the mold because, as you see here, they've added indents for cigarettes. They've just done several through here. It has been frosted, and also the design on the back has gold added to it. Gene Florence does show one similar to this in his 19th edition. It obviously has more ruffles along here than mine, but again, I really feel like with the way these are set up, this was intended to be an ashtray. So it was an interesting piece to find. The next piece, this is the large vegetable bowl. It's been frosted, there's been a hole drilled in the center, and it was intended to be used as a light cover. So you do see these from time to time, but not very often. Here's another one that hopefully you'll be able to see. This is a cake plate. In the very center, they have added Epler's Bakery to it. I have certainly looked. I've never been able to find where Epler's Bakery is, but they obviously purchased it and then had their name placed on it to give to their customers. So again, I'm not sure how many of these are out there, but here's at least one. And the last thing that I have is I have 2 original redemption cards. And for those of you who are not familiar with the term of depression glass, this is how a lot of depression glass was distributed. It was used as a promotion, and some grocery stores still do it to this day, but probably not to the same extent. You would receive pieces after you had purchased so much. If you look at this one up here on top, it has not been redeemed at all, and it says Golden Glow Tableware, Madrid Pattern. It's a 19-piece set. Will be presented to you when $5 has been traded at this store. So you had to, they punched out $5 worth, and then you received your 19-piece set of Golden Glow tableware in the Madrid pattern. This one down here has been redeemed by someone named Tom Gooden. It was redeemed on December 3rd, 1935. And it was for one 32-piece set of Golden Glow tableware in the Madrid pattern. And he had to spend $20 in the store to be able to redeem this card for the glassware. So just another interesting piece of history that you might find out there. All right, we're at a time in our presentation where we need to talk about reissues, reproductions, and unfortunately they did happen with Madrid. Federal Glass Company was still in operation into the 1970s, and as we got closer to 1976, our country's bicentennial, Federal Glass decided to jump on that bandwagon for commemoratives, and they took and pulled out the Madrid molds and reworked them slightly to put a 76 in them. Just like this one right here on this small plate, which this plate also proves that I need to correct a statement I made earlier. Earlier when I was talking about the Golden Glow pattern, I said the only plate that was reproduced was the dinner plate. Obviously, that was an incorrect statement. So this plate right here proves that. They did use the salad plate as well. So this was this. It appeared to be a success for Federal Glass, and they continued to market Recollection, as they called it, for the next 2 years on into 1978. Here's a catalog from 1977, 1978, I'm not really sure. And if you look just at the front cover, look at all these colors, or all these pictures of amber colored glassware from the Recollection line. And all you have to do is turn right to the first page, and there it is right there. It was a big line for them at this time. So as we turn through the pages, it's the first line they show. They talk about the pieces that you can get in this 20-piece starter set right here. Turn the page. Here are some other pieces that you can add to that set. They were doing butter dishes, sugars, creamers, no lids for the sugars, serving bowls, candlesticks, and I want to point out these three pieces right here, the dinner plate, the butter dish, and the large serving bowl that had the candlestick glued to them. Those were never made in the 1930s. Those were something that they created in the 1970s for recollection. So if you see footed pieces like this, those are from the 1970s or later. And so just be aware of that. So again, this seemed to be a success for Federal. Unfortunately, it wasn't a big enough success for them because in 1978, the Federal Glass Company had to declare bankruptcy. And in the bankruptcy proceedings, everything was ordered to be sold at auction. Lancaster Colony came in and bought quite a number of molds from Federal, and most of them were the Madrid Recollection line, and they sent them to their subsidiary Indiana Glass, and Indiana Glass proceeded to make Recollection in various colors. We'll talk about that in a second. And as you can see here, this is a catalog from roughly the early 1980s. Even here's a piece of Recollection on the front cover. So this was a big line for them as well. And here it is. Other than their jars, it's the second big line that they showcase in their catalog. Again, here's your 16-piece starter set that you get. You get cups, saucers, bowls, and dinner plates. Turn the page, you've got more dinnerware options here. You've got drinkware, which you really need to pay attention to these tumblers. These are thick, very heavy pieces of glass, whereas the original 1930s Madrid tumblers were very thin, mold-blown glass. That's the key with tumblers. If it's very thin, it's a 1930s. If it's not, it's from the 1970s. And you also, if you can see how different the shape is of these tumblers. These were new molds that Indiana created for the line. Again, we've got a salad set here. We've got more tableware options, serving items here. You've got a butter dish still. You've got salt and peppers. And again, just like with the tumblers, these salt and peppers are much more substantial pieces of glassware, heavy glass, compared to the original salt and pepper shakers from the 1930s. You've got sugar and creamers, which with most sugars and creamers, when you look at the rim, if you look at the one I have in my hand, this is an original. I know that because the spout is below the rim, the top rim. If you can see here, the spout is an extra piece of glass that's been added on. There's a mold seam at the base of the spout. So this tells me it was made by Indiana. Okay? However, if I look over here, here's one from the 1970s Federal catalog, and you can clearly see that that spout looks very much like this one, so you have to be careful about know where you're getting your glass from. We've got, here's their relish tray. It only has one divider into two sections. Here's a 1930s piece. It's got 4 sections. Here's also a grill plate. It's got 3 sections. Okay, so learn those little tricks. Here's a hurricane lamp. That was not original. That was a new mold that they created. And again, here are those footed pieces that Federal made. Those were made in these were made in the 1980s. So again, you have to know your glassware and what it is and things like that. An invaluable resource to help with that is the Antique Trader Guide to Fakes and Reproductions by Mark Chervenka. It's got an extensive line drawings in the section about Madrid that help you learn about all of the differences between old and new. So again, you ought to consider getting this. I mean, and they talk about various things, such as with the candle holder. In the original 1930s Madrid, the cup is smooth. There's nothing in here. But in the 1970s, 1980s recollection pieces, the cup has ridges to help hold in the candlestick. With the butter dish, two things. You need to look for this swag right here along the rim and how close it comes to the rim. This is an original piece. This lid is also original. I know that because it's got a mold seam going around the equator of the knob. If it were to go up and over, that's a recollection piece. Okay? Again, this is actually a recollection bowl. And again, it has to do with this swag part of the design and how close it is to the rim. You also need to think about color. Federal made recollection in amber. And in some cases, the 76 is the clue. You also have to think about the colors that Indiana made it. Their big colors were crystal, like this. They did it in a blue, fairly close to the 1930s Madonna blue. They did not make a green color like this. They made it's more of an aqua color. You can clearly tell the difference. They did a pink color, but you have to be careful with that. Some people say it's an orangey pink. I am not one to rely totally on color. You have to consider about if somebody's hand slipped and put in just a little bit too much of this element, that's going to change the color slightly. So I'm never going to know, I'm never going to go solely on color to tell me whether it's an original or a reproduction. I think you need to study other things besides that, such as in this book. Talk about some other resources that we have here. The first three here, Jean Florence's Collector's Encyclopedia of Depression Glass, Mozzie's Depression Glass by Barbara and Jim Mozzie, and Warman's Depression Glass by Ellen Shoy. Those are all fairly good references that give you a fairly good detailed description of what was made in the pattern. They do talk some about some of the reproductions and things to watch out for. I will point out that Warman's does have a nice little feature that I like, especially if you're a new collector or you're looking to add another pattern. They have nice little line drawings to showcase what the pattern looks like. So again, something nice, a nice little added feature that they've put in there for you. Okay? So any of these books would be a good reference for you to have. Lastly, I've got a book here. This is really not a reference for Madrid. It is called Shield F, The Federal Glass Company, 1900 to 1979 by Marge Iwan. It's just a general history of the Federal Glass Company, and we'll give you more of an insight in how the company ran and what went on and things like that. So I hope that from this presentation today you've learned something about the Madrid pattern and its reissues, reproductions, and hope you can go out and find your own Madrid treasure and enjoy collecting. Thank you.